Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Welcome, everyone, to the next chapter with Charlie. My guest today is Dr. Chad Hall. Chad is president of Coach Approach Ministries and an executive partner with StrongLead, a coaching organization in Hickory, North Carolina. Chad has written multiple books on coaching and leadership, promoting personal success and effectiveness for leaders and other hungry people. And that means you. So with that, what do you say we bring Chad Hall on the show? Chad Hall, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Charlie, good to be with you.
It's great having you here. You know, in our discussion yesterday, we discovered that we have synchronicities that we didn't even know existed. The seminary that you taught and implemented a coaching program was a seminary that 20 years before that was a seminary I graduated from.
Yeah, they no longer talk about you, Charlie, but yes. Well,
Yeah.
not in ways that I can share with your audience, but no, Western Seminary. So I'm assuming you went to the Portland campus.
The Portland campus.
Yeah.
Did you go to Portland?
Yeah, I was in Portland, and by the time I was there, we had, Portland was the main kind of mothership campus, but then we pretty active campuses in San Jose and Sacramento. So I would spend my time on all three campuses. But yeah, we found out that we have at least a mutual school connection.
Yeah, and it's funny. I went to the school before they changed the name to Western Seminary. And I tell people I went to the seminary with the redundant name, Western Conservative Baptist Seminary. Like, what is it going to be?
You were
Western?
wondering if there were other kinds of Baptists.
Yeah, exactly. Western Liberal Baptist. But in the liberal circles, or in the Baptist circles, there are liberal Baptist churches, but there's no one in the world that would think there's a.
Mm-mm.
And probably what the conservative Baptists consider liberal are probably still pretty conservative to the rest of the world.
Probably so, and especially back when you were there weren't many what you would think of as liberal Baptists. But yeah, that was a fun discovery that we share that in common.
Yeah, and it was just such a beautiful time. I loved Western. I had a beautiful time at Western. And then we have another connection. I went right after seminary. I went from seminary to pastor, and I went to seminary later. I was 32 when I went to seminary. So I had a job in business before I quit my job and went into seminary. But then I became a pastor, and I made a transition from pastor to business coach. And you made that same sort of transition. That you went from pastor, you did iterations in between, but you went from pastor to business coach. Tell me about that process.
It was a long process. When you describe it, it sounds short and simple and somewhat easy. When I was living it, it was long, complex, cumbersome, confusing, and kind of exhilarating, I guess. But yeah, I started out as a pastor in the Baptist tradition, Southern Baptist here on the East Coast, and
Oh, I didn't know you were a Southern Baptist.
yeah, grew up Southern Baptist, pastored at Southern Baptist Church while I was actually at Duke Divinity School. I'm a little bit of a weirdo, so I grew up Baptist. I went to a Lutheran undergrad. I went to Duke, which is a Methodist divinity school, and then
That's one way to describe it.
yeah, that's one way. Then I went to a Presbyterian seminary at Princeton Seminary, and then eventually worked for the North Carolina Baptist Convention, doing leadership consulting, church consulting, and that's where I discovered coaching, or coaching discovered me. and loved using the skills and tools and the approach of coaching. This would have been in the very early 2000s. And, Charlie, I loved it so much that I started using it almost primarily in what I did as a denominational leader. By the way, along the lines there, I planted a church and pastored it for a couple of years, kind of on the side. So my side hustle was planting a church. And but then there came a day when our denomination, this is very kind of typical, stereotypical Baptist. We got a new leader, and he decided coaching was the other guy's stuff. I don't like coaching because I don't like the other guy. And our
The other
denomination.
guy was you?
No, the other guy was the director who brought in coaching and started
Okay.
using coaching more. We were training people to use coaches. We were training pastors and such. But yeah, the new guy came in, and it was very unlike the song from The Who. It was, meet the new boss. He is not like the old boss. He does not want what the old guy had. So I remember sitting in my supervisor's office one January in 2007, and he said, "Chad, love you. You're great. You've got a place here, but we're putting coaching on the back burner as a denomination." And you got to think, this was 2007. Coaching was just emerging, and
Just emerging.
yeah, and as a denomination, man, that denomination was out in front, really pioneering the use of coaching as a leadership tool, as an approach to doing ministry. And they decided they were putting it on the back burner. And I walked out of his office that day thinking, I do not have a future here because I'm committed to coaching. And within a couple of months, I had transitioned, became an internal coach for a large business intelligence software company here in North Carolina, and coaching internally and to the company. We had, 10, 12,000 employees globally, and I was working mostly with managers and executive level folks. And and then eventually we launched Coach Approach Ministries. That was my next side hustle, and I did that while working in the business world. Eventually went to serve on faculty at Western Seminary, helped them start the coaching program. And then nearly 10 years ago, launched a coaching practice here in North Carolina called StrongLead. And that's been more and more what I do. It takes up more than 40 hours a week now. So I guess that's my full-time job.
StrongLead does, or both
StrongLead.
Both of the.
Yeah, StrongLead.
Oh, StrongLead. I thought that was an organization that pre-existed. You started that organization.
Yeah. Well, helped relaunch it about 10 years ago. And and so it's been kind of along with Coach Approach Ministries, what I have done. And you're catching me right as I'm handing Coach Approach Ministries off to its next president. So I've served that organization since its beginning in 2007. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a conflated because I've worn a lot of hats and a lot of different hats at the same time over the last few decades. But I have officially transitioned into business and executive coaching over the last several years.
One thing that I noticed, another similarity we have is that we have very conservative origins in Christianity, and yet you have to use those as fundamental truths. You can't be expressing those in a business environment. So we take, and you have something I want to talk about that I think probably is very deeply related, and that is you talk about the connection between character and a successful life.
Mm-hmm.
And much of the character, I'm guessing, because I want to hear about that, much of the coaching is biblically based. It's, this is sort of your way of bringing out your Christian roots into a world of business. Am I guessing this somewhat true? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would say that it's, my coaching with leaders and work with leaders is definitely biblically informed. So because I am shaped by Scripture, I'm shaped by the person and work of Christ. I am not trying to beat anybody over the head with that as a client. That'd be a pretty good gig, wouldn't it? You pay me to coach you, and I'm evangelizing you. You're paying me to evangelize you. I should get in on that. That'd be good. But no, that's not really how it works. But yeah, my approach to coaching, and as it's evolved and emerged over the last decades, has been, well, God's at work in people's lives. People that know God's at work, people who don't know God's at work. God's at work. And as a coach, I get to kind of come alongside and join God in that work. And it looks very different with different people, but a common thread is, people are pursuing something. They've got a goal, they've got a destination, they've got an ambition, they've got whatever brings them into working with an executive coach. And oftentimes the thing that's interfering with them achieving or succeeding is it's not a lack of skill, it's not a lack of talent, it's not a lack of resources per se. It's really a flaw in their character. And we all have flaws in our character. That's not I'm not trying to denigrate my clients. They're humans, so they have flaws in their character. And so the sort of work that I do with them on the coaching level is, wow, what has to change inside of you? How do you need to grow as a person in order to become the kind of person who can achieve or accomplish what you're trying to achieve or accomplish? And by the way, by the time you accomplish it, that's going to be secondary to the fact that you've been transformed along the way. And that's where the juice is.
By impacting an aspect or several aspects of your character is a transformational process.
Yeah.
That's a grand way of looking at it.
Yeah, they're not the person they need to be to do what they want to do in order to get what they want to get. And by the time they become that person, who they've become is way more valuable than what they were trying to get.
Do they catch that, or do you just?
A lot of times they do. A lot of times, and it can be kind of unsettling for them. I want to double my business. Okay, great. What's going to have to change in you? And by the way, I'm going to make it sound very simple here. It's not simple. It's years of conversations. But for example, someone's pursuing growth of their business, and what's in the way maybe is that they are not a very patient or other-centered person. And along the way, they have to become a much more other-centered, patient, maybe courageous, whatever maybe virtue there is that needs to grow in them.
Sure.
And they find that's that's not just sort of like a collateral benefit of this process. It actually ends up being the main benefit of the process. So it's a lot of fun. I feel like have been done pastoral ministry kind of off and on several times. Being an executive coach, being a leadership coach, I do way more ministry now than I ever have before.
Because I get it, because I feel the same way. I feel my job. First of all, a couple of points. One thing I want to say, when you said other-centered, maybe it's attributed to courage or whatever. I think it stands alone as a character trait. I mean, I think that is, if you want to talk about biblical character traits, it's probably, apart from worship and honoring God and the theological aspects of it, the orthopraxy, our practice of Christianity, has got to be other-centered. If it's not other-centered, then it just doesn't work. And we find the same thing in business. How many times in leaders? Because I have coached high-level executives as well, and ones that are not team-oriented, that do not depend on a team, that are jerks, the company doesn't want to work for them, they have a hard time succeeding. If they succeed, it's in spite of them, not because of them. It's because the
Yeah.
organization is so strong.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. And again, you kind of, it's almost like the thing that is of instrumental value eventually becomes of intrinsic value, because at first, why do I want to be other centered? Oh, because it'll help me get what I want. Um,
Right, right.
but eventually, being other centered becomes the thing I want, like, intrinsically. And oh, that's just a better way of not just doing life, but a better way of being. And for me, Charlie, this is really deeply informed by my theology. I ascribe to the idea that God's in the process of crafting us into the kind of creatures who belong in heaven, who can live in heaven with Him forever, and actually like it. Like we fit. And that's a character formation. We have to become a certain kind of person to kind of belong in that level of living, that kind of abundance. And that's the journey that we're on, and we get to help each other. I'm on that journey too. This isn't something I've come anywhere close to figuring out, and I'm now passing it on to my clients. Half the time they're helping me figure it out.
I got it. I had I told you I'm sort of into mystical Christianity now, and of the ancient, the late medieval Christian mystics of Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, et al. Um, and my spirituality is very informed. My theology is very informed by my spirituality and by my ortho. I call it, technically I use seminary terms with you, but the audience won't know what I'm talking about. But I talk about there's orthodoxy and orthopraxy. There's orthodoxy, what you believe. I'm really simplifying it. What you believe, and orthopraxy is how you believe, what that looks like. And the how you believe informs they work both ways. That what we believe informs what we do, but what we do also informs
Yeah.
what we believe.
Yeah.
And the two become integrated and grow and evolve, and that's wonderful. Tell me, what I'm curious, I'm thinking here, and I'm thinking of the leaders that you deal with and the character issues that you deal with. Do you have an example of somebody that you saw that, without sharing names, obviously, but just an example of somebody who character default, they were able to reclaim or recover from a character default and turn the change into a strength? Do you have a story you could tell of somebody like that? Just for
Yeah.
our audience, for clarity.
I can probably just randomly pick a client and think what's been the transformation. And again, it's typically not that these are people who turn from villains into heroes.
Right.
They are, but one particular one that I just talked to her last week, so maybe it's fresh in my mind. Business owner, she, I guess, inherited the business. Her father died young, and she was right out of college. She inherited this manufacturing company. Didn't really know how to run it. She was working there until she found a job, and then the next thing she knew, her father passed away. This is 20 years ago. Her father passed away. Next thing you know, she's running this company that she didn't want to run. She had no ambition for that. She kind of held on through the years, sort of, pardon my French, but kind of half-assing it.
Yeah.
And, we started working together about a year and a half ago. And I had, I guess in the business terms, or if you can put it in business terms, a come to Jesus moment with her where I said, you're either going to sell this company for parts in about 5 years, or you're going to get serious with it and sell it for about $12 million and have, a life-changing opportunity for you and those you love. And which is it going to be? And she came face to face with She had been kind of somewhere between lazy and cowardice um, over
And
the years.
cowardice brings laziness.
Yeah. Um, Doing the right thing is hard, and not just physically or emotionally hard, but a lot of times it's like psychologically hard. You have to have hard conversations. You have to disappoint people. You have to, it's trouble, it's conflict. And man, I have seen her grow in the last year of having this, oh, wow. I thought because it was hard, I was doing it wrong. Now I realize it's hard because that's a sign I'm doing it right. Like, and she's grown in courage. Again, the courage to have hard conversations, the courage to have them sooner rather than later. Procrastination is a form of cowardice. So she has the conversation, she has them early. She's rolled up her sleeve. She's taken some risks that are really starting to pay off for her. And again, that to me, you don't take a risk without courage. And there's just been this character development in her. And again, I wouldn't say that it's from a flaw to a strength. It's just from a weakness to a strength. Maybe her character is developing. She's becoming a better quality person, and it's the pursuit of this company goal that has sort of, been the catalyst agent for this growth in her character. And I see that just across the board with, I don't know how many clients I have right now, a few dozen, but I would say 90% of them are going through some
You have
kind
a
of
few
similar
dozen
transformation.
clients? You have a few dozen people you're coaching?
I would think that's about right. Yeah.
Holy cow. That's a lot, bro.
I know. I need to probably hand some of them off to some of our other coaches.
You think? Oh my goodness.
I love working with them. I work with, multiple people within the same business, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting, Charlie, like from the business owner that I just mentioned to, I work with this really fun group of people they're a group of managers of convenience stores.
Oh.
And I just kind of fell into this almost accidentally. And so, I mean, that's a blue collar, down to earth group of
Uh-huh.
people, and they have the same path, the same. It may not be courage that they are developing, but there's something about their character that's getting an upgrade because they're just being invited to think intentionally about their life. They're being invited to think intentionally about their influence that they have on other people. They're reflecting on what's getting in my way, and they've stopped sort of looking outward and blaming external people, circumstances, situations, and they've learned, oh, if I kind of get my own stuff together, life works a lot better. And it's so fun to see them embrace that and again just begin to mature as people.
That's nice to know you work with teams as well as individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. It was fun to do both kind of work.
Hmm.
You mentioned an interesting word and you talked about their intention. I believe strongly in intention and that intention is my short term and my longer term sort of goal. And I hear a lot, on my show, on my podcast, I get a lot of people wanting to talk about developing purpose. Well, I've got no more room in my, I've done purpose and I still have no idea how you find your purpose. I figure, we just it's talking it out with people. And for people that are wondering, I mean, I honestly, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but I don't get when you don't have a purpose. I mean, I've always, it's sort of intuition. I know now, articulating that and putting that into A
Yeah.
plan, sort of a personal plan, is a different story. That's a very different purpose. But you can, you know, so purpose is important, but I think even more important is intention. Talk to me about intention, because I think that's, I go into retreats. I go into a spiritual retreat every now and again, and they want me to walk in the door with, what's my intention? And I'm thinking, well, my intention is to learn from you and to figure it. And they said, no, that's not going to work. What do you want to learn? How is that going to impact you? It's sort of curating the filter that I'm going to use when I walk in there.
Hmm.
How do you talk about intention?
Well, like you, I probably connect it for good or for ill to purpose. I tend to think, you said you didn't have any more room for purpose, but so I'm going to
Oh, no, no,
shoehorn
no.
this
I want to
in.
talk about
But
it. We can talk about purpose.
well,
So
I'll
that's fine.
shoehorn it in a little bit. But I tend to think purpose finds you. That you don't sit down and stare at a blank page and think I'm gonna come up with a purpose. If that's what happens, you have it. It doesn't have you. And a really true purpose, I believe, has you. It
Yeah.
captures you. It captivates you. It owns you to us in a good way. And you are serving this purpose that's bigger than you. It provides meaning to you, and it provides sort of that compass that helps you navigate not just sort of the long term, what's my life about, but what does that mean for today? What does that mean for this week? And that's where the intentionality comes in. And if you don't have some idea of what your life's about, it's really hard to have any kind of intentionality with, you know, I think it's probably, I'm not a sailor, but I would imagine it's like a ship that didn't really have an intended destination. People could get really intentional about, I don't know, swabbing the decks or, trimming the sails or whatever sailors do, but they wouldn't be going anywhere, uh, not on purpose. And I think in life, if we're not careful, we can get so busy. We might be intentional with the little mundane, trivial, insignificant things, but true intention would be, wow, I'm being purposeful about today because of either where I'm headed or who I'm becoming or the influence I'm hoping to have in the world. But that idea of my life's about something bigger than just getting through today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
love when people have that bigger purpose.
Yeah. That's great. And I'm so, I say I'm, I, I will still, if I had somebody like you and you wanted to talk about purpose, I talk to purpose about you. I get tired of the same old people, especially young people. When young people are talking about purpose, I'm thinking, okay, it's not the same as when you get, they can have purpose. I think you absolutely can have purpose, because I think you are your purpose. Your purpose is part of your natural innate. I like that you don't have to go out looking for a purpose. You go in
Hmm.
divining what is inside, what is your passion. I believe strongly that purpose is, once you can articulate that and get the feeling of it, then it really does run your life. And
Hmm.
for instance, my purpose is my big purpose is kindness, and and it runs my life. Everything I do, I will say thank you. I will smile at people on the street. I'm an introvert, so I spend most of my time alone. But when I'm with people, I want to be and kindness is just being nice. And if that is your purpose, to just be nice, you don't do wrong. You don't do wrong with that. So that's my one
Yeah.
word. I have a purpose statement. Golly, do I have a purpose statement? I have a 4-page document. That outlines my actions and my activities that I haven't gone to the longest time, because it's become such a part of
Yeah.
my life that it is so integrated.
Well, that's
The
kind of, I think, Charlie, back to the character issue. You articulate something like that so that it can become, it's not your nature to live that purposefully. So you write it down and be intentional and you work on it, and eventually it becomes second nature at least. And then I think eventually it becomes your nature. And so you might have started out saying, my purpose is kindness, because you weren't a very kind person, and or not as kind as you would like to be, or you saw a delta between how your degree of kindness naturally and what you felt like life kind of called out from you to be kind. And I think that's that crafting process where I bet you've become a much kinder, again, just by nature, not because you're having to make yourself be kind, but because you made yourself, now you don't have to make yourself.
Well, actually with me it's a little bit different in that it wasn't a character change. It's always been a part of who I am. I
Mm.
recognized that it was who I am, so I could then build on that. I could make that,
Oh
it
yeah.
wasn't just another one-off of my character traits that I would do. It was who I am, and it has become my
Mm.
legacy. And the beautiful thing about kindness is that is the legacy I want to leave. I want to leave a legacy of kindness. And I know, I was just talking to a friend last night. We were laughing about it. She's just in her 50s, so she's not my age, which is 25 years older, darn near. And that people, when I die, you know, bad news, everybody, but no one's going to remember you. Maybe your spouse and your children and a couple people will remember you. Other than that, you will be forgotten. And so a legacy, there are people that want legacy, they want memorials built so people will remember who they are. I don't have that kind of ego. Matter of fact, I have the opposite ego. I don't want people to remember who I am. But kindness doesn't
Mm.
depend on me. It's my actions now. And if I am
Mm.
kind to you, Chad, if I'm kind to you and you embrace this kindness and this good speech, then and these good reports back at you and these good comments, they make you feel good and they make you want to do that for other people. They
Yeah.
drive you to do that for other people. So kindness is sort of a layer that keeps growing, it keeps building, it keeps building, it keeps building. So my legacy, if kindness builds in my small circle, then I have left the legacy that I want. And the
Yeah.
beautiful thing, I have one son. So my son's 33 years old. He is my legacy. My son,
Yeah.
and and he, when he found out about kindness and with his career and what he does, kindness is huge. And he says, Dad, that will be, we'll both die with that on our lips, that we wanted to be kind and nice to people. And so that's the beauty of something like kindness.
I love that, and I love that it's something that will carry on. I think that if you really do have an intentionality and an intention for
Mm-hmm.
life, there's something that you say, why does this matter? And if I feel for the people who think, well, you die and that's it, and maybe that's true. Maybe at least soul, spirit. Maybe they're right. Maybe you die and that's it. Something you can't deny is that you will leave a legacy of some sort.
Of some sort, yes, you will. So that perfect. I haven't thought of it that way. You're going to leave a legacy. It's not, oh, I want to leave a legacy. You're going to leave a legacy. So
Mhm.
our gift is to define that legacy and live according to that.
Mhm.
Whatever is going to be, not so much for me remembered. Some people it's remembered. Legacies to be remembered. It's not for me to be remembered, but it's an impact on a world that will spread. that will spread out to the rest of the world.
We do a lot of workshops with leaders where we ask them to articulate, talk about, clarify, maybe even write what's their purpose, what really is their life about. And having done this with hundreds of leaders through the last several years, there are these themes, and one of the big themes that I've seen is it's usually about leaving the world better than you found it. Now, it may take on different flavors, different ways of talking about it, articulating it, but almost always it's got something to do with if I live the right way, I will have left my little corner of the world better than I found it. So that's a legacy. Nobody says, my purpose in life, the legacy I want to leave is, burn it all down or pollute it, leave things worse than I found it. I think we all have that innate desire, maybe God-given desire, to leave things better than we found them, to make a positive difference.
Goodness. Yeah, let's kind of move from there. I want to go back and I want to move forward. I want to go back to your executive you were talking about, who you talked about courage, who kind of lacked the wherewithal, didn't think she had what it took to be a leader. And and so what you were building in an area that you have that I read that's important to you is confidence. I think confidence and courage are really related, and I'm huge in confidence, Chad. That's a big thing for me, is that I am responsibly confident. I read a quote. I just wrote a blog this last week. I read a blog every week. I just checked today. I've been writing blogs for 11 years.
Wow.
Podcast for 9 years and writing blogs for 11 years. And I wrote a blog last week that I quoted, that I made fun of the quote. Mark Twain said, "All you need is ignorance and confidence, and you will be successful." And, that is so Mark Twain. And that is what I wrote. It is a cute line that will bring a smile to your face. But that's all that's good for it, because in the long run, ignorance is not going to get you anywhere. You've got to be informed.
Yeah.
To be a success, you've got to be informed. And I am extremely confident, but I am responsibly that I know what I can do and I know what I can't do. Especially at this time, I know what I'm not good at. And if I'm not good at something, if I'm going something that's completely out of my skill set, not that I've never tried, I'll try things brand new all the time. I'm a creative, I'm a curious creative, and I'll be out there doing whatever I can do. But if it's out of my skill set, if it's asking me to be something my character is not in alignment with it, I won't even start it. I won't even do it. And if I know I'm not going to be good in it, I like whatever I do, I like to do well. And if I know I'm not going to do well, I don't even start it, man. I won't even go. And so as a result, whenever I start a new project, I believe so much in the project and so much of my ability to handle that project. People say, well, what are you anticipating your first errors or first failures? So I don't even project failure. I don't project failure. I project roadblocks, obstacles, things that may get in the way, but I don't look at them as failures. I look at them as just part of the process. That's my view of confidence. Tell me your view of confidence.
Your Mark Twain quote makes me think of one of my favorite quotes. I'm not going to get this exactly right because I've tried to remember it now for probably 20 years since I heard this. I heard the actor Will Ferrell he was being interviewed, I think, by Terry Gross on NPR, Fresh Air with Terry Gross. I don't even know if that show still comes on, but she's interviewing, or whoever it is interviewing Will Ferrell, and he says, I love playing characters with unearned confidence. And just in a snapshot, I think of all these Will Ferrell characters who have unearned confidence. And I think that's the confidence with ignorance, confidence when
Yeah,
there's
it
really
is. It is. Tell
not,
me about that. Tell me, inform me.
I think why that captivated me so much is because, and we've seen this. Maybe sometimes we even go there ourselves, where we think confidence could be a replacement for ability or competence, and it's not. I've kind of learned through the years that, and I describe it as, confidence is the dimmer switch on competence. So,
Well, let me think. Confidence is the dimmer switch on competence. Yeah, you're going to have to explain that.
yeah, competence is having what it takes. So, like you were talking about, there's some things you've got what it takes. There's some things you don't have what it takes. Your son's a Major League Baseball catcher. I do not have what it takes to be a Major League Baseball catcher.
Right.
And he does. And however, if he doesn't have the confidence, that dimmer switch gets turned down. You kind of think about the lights in your kitchen. They have the ability, they have the potential to shine at 100 watts, but the dimmer switch has turned them down to 10 watts. Well, confidence does that. It dims down our competence. We have what it takes. It just doesn't get out because our confidence is lacking. And so, and again, I've worked with a lot of leaders. Almost every one of them, eventually, we talk about confidence. It's like a plague, a lack of confidence that people have. And so then there's all this untapped, unrealized competence. People, oftentimes have what it takes. It's just not being realized because they don't have the confidence. And what I like is confidence can allow you to express your competence and then realize, oh, I don't have what it takes. I need to go get some. And that's what happened with this business owner that I was talking about. She did lack confidence, but she also lacked some competence. She lacked some skills, some knowledge, some character traits. And so she had to go get it.
But it was within her skill set. She knew she could do it. She had something. Some of it was just information and process that she was not familiar with. She gets familiar with that. It's in her skill set, and now she can truly excel. If it's not in her skill set, she's in trouble. But if
some of it was not in her skill set, she had to go learn some skills.
No, I mean in her maybe her talent set, that she had the wherewithal to do these things.
Yeah, she had the potential to do them. She had
right.
I mean, because there are some people you're not going to teach them those skills. That's not.
Again, my goodness!
Not only do I not have the do I not have what it takes to be a Major League Baseball player, I don't have what it takes to even become that kind of person. But a lot of times the leaders I work with, they again, they've got a lot of what they need, but the confidence, and usually what's lacking is the confidence that they can grow, the confidence that they can learn, the confidence that they can, like this gal, I don't know, she's probably my age, and she says, I don't know, I think I'm an old dog. These are new tricks. And I was just like, that's a stupid saying. Like, you can do this if you want to. And if you don't want to, God's still going to love you. I mean, the world's not going to end if you don't want to do this. It's your choice. But that confidence that she could learn, she could start doing things differently, she could develop the courage to have hard conversations or whatever. I just think it's wonderful to see that blossom in a person.
Yeah, I really like that. One thing I kept thinking, I didn't know if you're going to bring it up in the dimmer switch.
Mm-hmm.
The dimmer switch goes down, it will dim, but the dimmer switch many times will actually take it brighter than what is normal. So you can use that switch as an upgrade as well to say, I
Yeah.
need to take my confidence rather than dim it. I need to up it. And here I'm going to turn up the dimmer switch and, make it a brightening switch. And I'm going
Well,
to,
yeah, and I probably didn't explain that very well because that's exactly what I'm trying to encourage my clients to do is I'm like, this is not a binary switch on off. This is a dimmer switch. You can turn that thing up, turn up your confidence, and
right.
more is coming out. You're going to shine brighter. You've got that in you. You just got to turn up the confidence, which is like, I mean, it's not magic, but it feels like magic.
Oh man, I have so many things I want to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you, we just don't have time. We're near an end of time because the next subject will take 10 or 15 minutes. And I wanted to talk about, maybe we should go ahead. You got 10 minutes?
I'm all yours.
I got, here I've got so the listeners know my son is in a playoff game right now. So I'm dying to watch baseball, but I've got to ask this question. Um, you you are big in desire. I really am big, and that you write, God leverages our desires, even ones that seem ungodly. I think I am of the belief, philosophically, I'm stoic, that
Mhm.
my cerebral sort of calm way will make me stoic, but I'm also terribly Epicurean. And if you
Mm.
take Epicurean from Epicurus, it's not sex and drugs and rock and roll. Epicurus was just not wearing rough sackis or sackcloth or whatever they wore. He wore better. But he believed in pleasure, and um, I think God created us. I believe, I've not read it. I don't know anybody else in the world that supports this, but I believe God created us for pleasure.
Mm.
And I think relationship with God is pleasurable. Relationship with people is pleasurable. Following God's edicts are pleasurable. The way of God is pleasure, and no one. I just don't read it because pleasure is always taken, from. Is it James that talks about it? That talks about pleasure and lust. Lust and
Mhm.
desires, and your desires are lustful, and so if you're talking about pleasure, you're talking about sex and drugs and rock and roll. Well, you're not. Talk to me about, you don't have to talk to me about pleasure, but talk to me about desire, and
Mhm.
that is a character trait.
Well, I will mention, I'm not an expert on this, but I know the very conservative pastor John Piper talks a
Okay.
lot about the pleasure of knowing and being in right relationship with God. He's even got some like phrase around the hedonistic Christian hedonism, maybe is what he
Oh,
calls it.
really? I like this. I'm gonna have
And
to look him up.
yeah, and and again it's a specific twist or angle on it, but the idea is, well, God wants us to delight in him.
Yes.
And And the scriptures talk about, we delight in His word, we delight in His wisdom. This isn't like, I'm going to go spend forever with God and hate it. It's going to be a joy. And now the idea of desires, do we necessarily desire that? I don't know. I mean, I think that sometimes our desires aren't so hot. They're not so
Yeah,
great for
yeah,
us,
yeah, 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 yeah. And
Um,
I raise my hand to that too.
yeah. And again, my theology, and maybe I'm just sort of an all-encompassing, God's going to make, God can draw a straight line with a crooked stick. So,
Has to.
yeah, because there are no other sticks. So our desires, as faulty and inferior as they might be, are the pathway to something that's even better. Again, you see this in Scripture. I take Scripture, Christian Scripture, as normative for how life works. So Christ surrounds Himself with these disciples, and they want to be, they want things that aren't that great. you know, some of them want to be, can I be at your right hand, Jesus? Can I be first in your kingdom? They're kind of bickering and brokering and, all this kind of stuff. And you look at that kind of desire and you think, well, gosh, is that a good desire, bad desire? They could have better desires, but even those desires God uses to reveal something to them, something better. And I think what we make the mistake of doing way too often is we're not honest with ourselves or with others about what we really want. And if we're honest with ourselves and maybe with others that we can trust about what we really want, we at least get the desire out into the light of day. And we may see that in the light of day, it loses its luster. We may see in the light of day, there's some goodness in the midst of some other kind of corruption with the desire. And we might see that desire is actually, wow, that's a pretty mature, healthy, well-adjusted kind of thing to want. And in all of those scenarios, God can use that desire, even if it doesn't seem very godly. So I think being honest with ourselves about what we want, being honest with ourselves about what we're pursuing, gives us a chance to embrace it or upgrade it. And either one's great.
Tell me a story. We'll wrap up with this. Tell me a story. Give me an example of a desire, like we're talking business. Let's talk business. Say my desire for my company is to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It should be your desire because it's in your corporate articles. That is what you're in business for, is for profit. But if that's your only desire, there's not going to be a lot of character development in that desire. How does God leverage that desire to make more money into a desire that can make somebody richer in their character?
When I think of bringing that kind of desire out into the light and admitting, I really want to be filthy rich. Great. Okay, I want my company to grow because I want to be just immaculately, immeasurably.
So now it's personal.
wealthy.
It's not about the company. It's about me personally.
That's one piece. Yeah. So now I want that for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to admit that to myself. Again, in all of Western philosophy and theology, we would look at that person as greedy and not so great, and that's true. But now that that's out in the light, we can really bring it into the light and say, oh wow, what is it about being filthy rich that you want? Like, why do you want that? Like, what's important to you about that? Not without judgment. I'm not trying to take it away from you. I'm not trying to say it's bad. I'm just curious. What is it about that that's important to you? And oftentimes what you'll find is beneath the veneer of vice, there's a virtue. That it may look on the surface that this is just greed, selfish greed.
Okay.
But oftentimes beneath, it's like, I want to provide for my family. I want security. I want to know that everything's going to be okay. Oh, wow. The money is a means to some deeper desire. And now the desire for the money and the wealth has opened the door to explore that deeper desire. And those aren't bad things to want.
Yeah,
Um,
those are our most security and stability
yeah.
is one of the key fundamental drives of all human beings. And so this is somebody that just could be insecure or could want lots of other things, but that's really what they're looking for is a level of security, is a
hmm
level of stability within their family, with themselves personally.
And giving the safety to talk about it, to admit it, to not be anxious as you investigate that. To me, that's what I love about coaching is I'm not here to judge you. And I'm an advocate for you. And I sometimes I think I've got the spiritual gift of apathy. I don't really care what you want. I mean, knock yourself out, man. I do want to be curious about it and make sure it's what you really want. Are you pursuing the path that'll get you what you really desire? And having a place that's safe and curious can evoke that kind of awareness for someone, I think serve them way better than just sort of blindly dismissing, oh, that's just you being greedy. Usually it's not. Usually it's the doorway to something deeper.
That's brilliant. You know, I can see why you were a good coach. I don't why you I can see why you're a great coach. I don't I've interviewed coaches. I don't always say that, but there's something you have a gift. It communicates sort of intuitively to say, if I know somebody that needs a coach, I'm going to send them to North Carolina. Uh, this is, you really do have a gift, and
I
way to
appreciate that.
go, way to
That's very
go, and
kind of you to say, Charlie. I appreciate that.
well, it is true, and Dr. Chad Hall, thank you for spending this time with me today. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for spending time with me today on our show.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And I also want to thank everybody for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.